I grew up on 90s games, and at the time, I figured that the switch from bright heroic games like Mega Man and Dragon Quest to more worldly and run down fare like Metal Gear and Front Mission was a matter of the new 3D graphics tempting people to chase realism, or maybe the result of developers choosing to pursue an older market. It wasn't until much later that I learned that actually the 80s were a golden era in Japan, and then the 90s were a hangover they call the lost decade. And I was like, oh, they were probably working through some feelings, huh? Like when America turned away from the space race optimism of Star Trek in favor of the misery of Soylent Green and Logan's Run. Over and over in Japanese games from the mid 90s and onward, powerful institutions were exploiting and or dissolving the humanity of the underclass. Final Fantasy VII's Shinra literally burying its poor and turning people into monsters. Final Fantasy Tactics making the contempt explicit. Front Mission's S-type devices blurring the lines between human and machines, Resident Evil's Umbrella treating an entire city as expendable guinea pigs, and Armored Core, man, where to even start? Armored Core passed me by in the 90s. In 2009, when Demon Souls came out, I fell for it hard. And ever since then, the Armored Core series has been somewhere on my large hypothetical backlog of things I would get to at some point. Maybe if I'd known at the time that Armored Core 4 and 4 Answer had been directed by Hidetaka Miyazaki, who went on to make Demon Souls and all the rest of those, I would have prioritized it and jumped on it at the time, or at least sooner than now. Uh, Instead, what I did know about Armored Core was that there were a ton of games in this series. It seemed like an intimidating lot to wrap my head around, and that the controls of at least some of the games were so complicated that there were urban legends, maybe true, but at least urban legends of people holding their PlayStation controllers backwards so that they could use all of their fingers simultaneously to press different buttons. So between those, I was a little hesitant to jump in. Okay, but now, why Armored Core 1 instead of 4 or 6? The truth is, I liked the PlayStation 1 aesthetics, and I think that that actually suits the modular industrial designs of these war machines pretty well. The mech design spoke to me, which, in retrospect, made sense after I learned that the Armored Core mech designer, Shoji Kawamori, was also responsible for the designs of some or all of the machines in pretty much all of my favorite formative mech sci fi franchises, other than Front Mission. Transformers, Macross, Patlabor, Ghost in the Shell. This guy's resume was nuts. Many games of a certain advanced age don't waste time in game teaching you how to play, but few of those start with an explicit, well, you can sink or swim, good luck message like Armored Core, followed by a live fire exercise that can give you a game over. From there, you're taken to Raven's Nest, a very uncozy home base where you can save your game, check your email, and customize your mech, or you can once you have any money. You're a rookie recruit in a mercenary company, and in order to earn money, you have to select missions from a menu. If you thought Resident Evil and Front Mission were cynical, well, these are your starter mission options in Armored Core. Eliminate squatters or eliminate strikers. Workers of the world, unite all you want. It's not going to save you. Capital has taken over completely in the world of Armored Core, with the only two relevant powers being the megacorporation Murakumo Millennium and the other megacorporation, Chrome. Your mercenary company makes all of its money playing the field, running jobs for various clients, but most often these two rivals enthusiastically calling hits on each other. You'd qualify as a double agent, except you're a mercenary, so all that double dealing, to be expected, above board. Armored Core is cruel, not just to the citizens of its iron dystopia, but to its player. New weapons or new mech parts cost money that come out of your paycheck, no surprise there. So do ammo costs. Every rifle shell spent is another you have to buy after the mission ends. And every scratch on your Armored Core's frame needs to be buffed out too. That's right, every little bit of HP lost during a mission is just more debt. Sometimes, if you do badly enough, you might not even break even on a mission. And if you fail a mission, well, that's even worse. Armored Core does not generally give you a game over screen upon failure. Instead, it just bills you. One or two bad breaks early on while you're still coming to grips with the controls, and you may end up with negative money and no real way to escape the red. Those of us living in the modern day may have never had reason to think about this, but money is a human invention, not part of the natural state of the world. And so is bankruptcy, a separate and much younger human invention, without which debtors became permanently indebted to their creditors, struggling to pay back impossible sums. As I understand it, bankruptcy law and similar debt release valves, like the practice of Jubilee detailed in Leviticus, were socially stabilizing forces that allowed a larger community's needs to be balanced against the rights of creditors. But what happens when civil society crumbles and only those creditors have any sway? What happens when your mercenary company decides you're costing them more money than you're worth? Forcible surgery to turn you into a more effective cyborg killing machine. That's what. Heavy handed mercy mechanics in games like the White Tanuki suit and Mario 3D Land infuriate me, because the game is condescending to me, acting like it's doing me a kindness while letting it slip that I in fact suck. I'd rather just keep sucking until I naturally improve, thanks. But what Armored Core does, I love. This process of wiping your debt and turning you from human to human plus cyborg makes the game easier. And if your handlers get desperate enough with your cascade of failures, they'll keep incrementally improving you a half dozen times. But because it's diegetic and cynical, because it feels like a natural part of Armored Core's world, I don't mind. In fact, I wish it had happened to me. Unfortunately, I didn't know about the Human Plus program when playing, and I responded normally to the incentives I thought the game was giving me. In other words, when I failed a mission, instead of saving my game, I just reloaded and tried again. Why not, right? This being a PlayStation 1 game, there's no autosave keeping me honest. The game needed me to co sign every failure by visiting the system menu and selecting which save slot to record that failure to. Okay, this is my third person shooter episode, and yet everything I've said so far has had nothing to do with the game's ostensible genre. I'm too busy being charmed by the way the game's mechanics and aesthetics bleed into each other. I love the fact that your pilot's body is never seen or even controlled. If you're not in your mech in a mission, then you're just a cursor on a menu. There's no human being to embody. You never respond to emails, only receive them. You can only speak through bullets. It's really beautiful how bleak it all is. As a third person shooter from 1997, it's unsurprisingly idiosyncratic. It was designed for the original PlayStation controller, the one that looked like a melted Super Nintendo controller before the analog sticks were grafted on. And so there was no obvious way to handle moving and aiming simultaneously in 3D space. What FromSoft settled on was mapping tank controls, forward, backward, and turning left and right, to the D pad, horizontal strafing to the L1 and R1 buttons, and vertical aim adjustments to L2 and R2. It's clunky as a new player, and honestly remains clunky after a dozen hours. But since you're a rookie pilot struggling to control a walking tank, that jank is weirdly appropriate. What allows this to work, even if it's never going to be my favorite third person shooter, is that your armored core comes with a targeting system. Just get an enemy somewhere in this box, and the world's most generous aim assist will allow most of your weapons to score hits against all but the most evasive foes. There are complications. Some weapons, like shoulder mounted rockets, don't benefit from the targeting system at all, and some stage features disable your targeting system. But it does mean the controls aren't as much of a struggle as you would expect. Well, the platforming is a struggle, and that left me with some real mixed feelings about that final stage. But taken as a whole, I think the combat experience is at least good enough to let the game's other aspects carry it. And also good enough that I'm interested in seeing where this series went after 1997. I'll likely survey most of the main numbered titles, rather than check off every direct sequel like Project Phantasma and Master of Arena along the way. But at least Armored Cores 3, 4, 4 Answer, and 6 have jumped quite a ways up my list of future games to play. Up next, platformers. Nintendo released Mario 3D World and Tropical Freeze back to back in the Wii U era, and then just kind of gave up on releasing even marginally challenging platformers in favor of expressive and or cozy ones. But I don't like those nearly as much, so if neither Mario nor Donkey Kong has given me what I want in over a decade, it's time to find greener pastures. And rather than picking another entry in the Meat Boy or Celeste Lil Guy precision platformer subgenre, I'm sticking with the vintage mascot platformer theme and taking a trip to the wannabe Looney Tunes world of Crash Bandicoot 4. I've heard it's surprisingly demanding, so here's hoping.